welcome back to Graybeard's Garage. I'm Ron. We're in a different setting today. Instead of out in the garage, we're in my Harley room. Give you a little bit of a walk around here. Not much to say. It's kind of in a mess right now. This is my little Harley lounge I got set up. Some other projects I've done here and there. Different collector's items on the wall. One of my prized possessions here, an autographed poster from Indian Larry from when I met him back in 2003, and as you all know, shortly thereafter he passed away. But that's not what we're here to talk about. I'm going to do some leather wraps for my Ultra Limited. It's going to be pretty simple. Got some, I believe it's about 6-ounce leather here. Picked that up at Tandy here about a month ago. I've been making a lot of things out of it. Decent thickness, not too thin, not too thick. One thing I like about this thickness, it's thin enough, but yet thick enough to where you can actually tool it. So we're going to do a bit of tooling to, make it look pretty nice. The only thing you really need for this project is you're going to be needing a piece of leather, a piece of cardstock, cereal box. This is off of a tea box. That way you can make your pattern before you put it onto the leather. And another thing you can get up pretty cheap is some wax thread. The reason I'm going to be using the wax thread because we've got to hand sew this onto the grip. It'd be nice, if I could stitch it on a machine, but you just can't do it on a grip. So this comes various colors, different colors of browns, a burgundy color, natural sinew color, black, and this is actually a purple, I believe. And it comes with a little container full of different needles for hand stitching. I think that was about $10 or $12 for all that off Amazon. I've had it for a couple of years now. As you can see, it still looks like brand new, and I've used it like crazy. But basically what we got to do is, depending on your grip, I'm doing stock grips in my Ultra Limited, is that you need a rectangular pattern. Let's see here. There we go. The grip circumference is about 4 3/4 inches. The length is about the circumference is 4 inches and the length is 4 3/4 inches. So basically we're making a rectangle. And once we cut this rectangle out, we're going to be punching our stitch holes. And once we get that squared away, we're going to decide what we're going to do for design on it. Now, this is a real simple project. It doesn't take very long. If you want to get your feet wet and the leather working, this is one of the easiest things you could do. Not to mention you got something custom that's going to stand out on your bike. So let me get this camera set up here. We can see what's going on, and I'll show you how we go about making our templates. Alright, so like I said, our dimensions that we're going to need is 4 inch by 4 3/4 inches. So I'm going to take advantage. I already cut one square side here. So what we're going to do is go ahead and line this up here. Just a simple square. Line up to your edge. We're going to make our 4-inch mark. This side, line it up on our edge here again. Four-inch mark here. Get our marks lined up. Okay, then now I need 4 3/4 for my length. Turn this to where you can see what's going on, and plus so that I can get my angle of the dangle. So what we're going to do, there's my 4 inch. Now we're going to do 4 3/4. These are right here. Over here. 4 3/4. Sure that's all good to go. Just connect our lines, and all we do is just cut that out. So what we need to do is make a notation to ourselves that this is the side we're going to put our stitch lines on both sides here. Like I said, our circumference is 4, length is 4 3/4. we got our templates laid out. Several ways you can cut this. You can use a box knife like this. One thing I actually like to do is using a pair of scissors. I'll cut through the leather, and the reason being, if you cut with a flat edge against your line, it'll actually compress the side of the leather, giving you a little bit better edge. I'll go ahead and get these cut out. Alright, so I got my two pieces to cut out here. Nice and square, same size. Like so. Alright, so what I'm going to do right now is using a simple compass or divider or whatever. It'd be nice if you had some wing dividers. But what we're going to do is we're going to do a little bit of a ridge down either side here. That when we go to do our designs, we know where to stop for our designs. So using the pointed end, I'm just going to put a crease down here. Do a couple passes over it. Just like so. And this gives us our space for our stitch line. But what we're going to do basically is we want to set up our stitch lines. This is a leather chisel. You see it's pointed on top, square tines, and they're spaced out. And what we're going to literally do is just center this between our line and the edge. And we're going to go in and basically with a mallet, something of this nature, hammer these holes all the way through. Then, see, I'll make the marks, show you here, first 4 holes, and what you do is you keep them straight. You go to the first 2 tines to your last 2 holes, and you keep doing it like that, and every time you do that, it's going to keep your stitch line straight. So if you start out straight, you're going to end up straight. Alright, so I'm going to get these holes punched, and we'll get back to the next step. Alright, so here I've got a wet sponge, a couple of my tools that we're going to use. And what we need to do is just wet the surface of this leather. This makes it soft enough to where we can tool it. You can see this leather soaks up this water pretty quick. You don't want it to soak all the way through, just enough to soften the top layer about halfway down. If you get it too soft, it'll just mush and won't allow you to do an impression. Alright, we'll see how that goes. That should be enough. Alright, so what I'm going to do, I'm going to use this tool first. They call this a camouflage tool. Looks kind of like a clamshell. I'm going to start right here in the center. What I'm going to do is I'm going to line up the points of this right on that line that I made earlier. For the next one, I'm going to go ahead and use my block again. And what we're going to use here is here has a little star configuration on it with a little deadhead in the middle of it. that's pretty much it. Yeah, I got one that kind of moved a little bit on me, but not much you can do about it. This is going to be dyed black, so you really won't be able to tell once it's done. So that'll be one grip. I'm going to do the other one, and after we get it done, next step will be to dye it. Alright, so I got all the stamping done. You see here. With any luck, they came out identical. So it's a real simple project. Tools are very inexpensive. A lot of the tools you can get from Hobby Lobby. These stamps that I used for the deadheads, that was kind of pricey. Got them off Amazon. Those are cut from brass. Those are about $30 a piece. I added a little extra embellishment here with one of my ridge stamps. It's hard to say exactly how much this costs because you got just a couple dollars worth of leather. Then once you get the tools, you know, they make up for themselves in no time. And as far as dye goes, I'm sure Hobby Lobby has some kind of leather dye. You can get it off Amazon. I got this from Tandy Leather. This is a water stain, so it's waterborne. It's easy to clean up, but do not get it on your hands because you know your skin is no different than leather. Leave it on your hands too long, you're going to be dyed yourself. Really like this dye. It's the first time I've used it. It's a super deep black dye, and it doesn't take that much of it. So all you do is use a sponge, put a little bit of the dye on, and then you just rub it in. Okay, I'm going to come back with my brush. Make sure all the little nooks and crannies are filled. What I'll probably end up doing is just getting some neutral shoe polish. You know, it's a wax, and just go rub it into it once I get them installed, and that way it'll help protect them from the weather. Like I said, I'm not too worried about protecting them because I said if they get to a point where they dry out or anything, then I'll just replace them with something different, come up with a different design. This is just something I decided to do. This deadhead stamp is a new stamp that I got just about a week or so ago, and I've had a lot of fun with it so far. I'm going to let this sit and dry for a couple hours, and then actually I'll probably let it sit until tomorrow. It's kind of late in the day. I'm going to let these sit overnight, and then we'll see about installing them on the bike. Alright, so it's the next day. Here's my covers. After we got the dyeing done, I've curved them a little bit, make the installation a little bit easier. I went and took a round punch and opened the holes up a little bit, make it easier to stitch, because the chisel punch makes kind of a square or triangular shaped hole. Sometimes the larger needles are kind of a pain in the butt to get through. So I went ahead and just did the round holes with a very fine punch, and it makes it look a lot nicer. Like I said, I curved it. Nice even coating on the dye job here. I think it come out pretty good. I wanted to show you, here's the grips that I put on here, or grip covers I did about a year ago, a little bit of wear. And this was just leather that I took off of a old Harley vest, a woman's Harley vest that we had acquired. I had used like a maroon type thread. It's kind of wore down a little bit. It's kind of tan looking now. But you can see it's got a little bit of wear and tear, but I like that patina look on it. And this held up really well after a year. Now there's the left side. Here's the throttle side. Same thing, a little bit of weathering, but held up really nice. So I'm going to get you set up on a tripod here, and I'm going to cut the threads here loose. You see they're laced on the back side. I'm going to cut these threads loose, get these off, do a trial fitment on our new ones, and see about getting them laced up. See by cutting these laces off. I said these covers were put over just the stock rubber grips. Just like so. It's a lot more supple leather than what my new ones are made out of. I put a little dab of glue to hold them in place. I may do the same thing just to make it easier to put them on. If I do, I'm going to use contact cement. That way it'll dry. And to make it easier on us, what I'm going to do is I'm going to rotate this grip 180 degrees after I put a little bit of glue on here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to find my center line on my wrap. The center line of the grip is right now, this is the top of the grip, and I want my lacing to be underneath. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use a little bit of rubber contact cement. Some of you may have used this before. This is a Weldwood, there's barge, it's basically a contact rubber cement, and it's real easy to use. What you're going to do, you're going to put just a little bit down the center of this grip, and what this is going to do is allow us to stick this grip on there and keep it in place a lot easier while we're working on it, stitching it up. Because if not, you know, trying to keep this thing in place while you're stitching is like trying to hold on to a greased pig. It just doesn't want to cooperate with you. So this will help keep it in place while we're doing the stitching. So then we're going to take our wrap here. We're going to put a line of the glue right down the center. Doesn't take much, just enough to get it wet, and it's going to soak into the leather just a little bit. So what we want to do is let this glue almost dry. It takes about 5-10 minutes, and it'll look really dry but still be tacky. So once you make contact with the two pieces together, it's pretty much permanent. I'm going to let these sit here and dry off for just a few minutes. And once that's dry, I'll come back and we'll get this stuck on. Alright, so we gave our glue time to dry for about 5-10 minutes. You can see it's dry to the touch. But once we stick it on here, it's going to stick really well. So you find your center point, wrap it around. You're going to put some pressure on it for a second or two. And that's going to hold that in place while we work on it from the other side. A little bit of pressure. That way the two layers of glue is going to bond together. And remember, I'm not putting it all the way around. It's just down the center piece, right down the center, about 3/4 inch to 1 inch wide. It's going to be just enough to hold it in place for us. Alright, so now that that's made contact, it's there. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to rotate this grip around. I'm not going to take this, no, if it's just regular grip, you could take it off, but these are heated grips. So I'm just going to rotate this around to where the bottom is facing me from the front. And when I bring this together, I'm going to have the lacing right along the bottom edge of the grip. So now we're going to set up our needles and our thread. These are just basic hand stitch leather needles. You can get them in any craft store, Walmart, whatever. They're blunt tipped, kind of large, and we've got some wax thread. You don't have to use wax thread, but that's generally what's recommended for use on leather. Now you want about 3 or 4 times the length of what you're stitching. So you're going to go about probably 2-3 feet here. And we need to trim this off. Then to put these needles on, you keep from, a lot of people would just feed it through and loop it and try pulling the needle through without pulling it back out like so. But what you do is you pull it out a couple inches like so, then you're going to bring it up and you're going to actually spread this out and put the needle through it. It's kind of difficult with the blunt tip needle, but you work with it and it'll go through just like so. So you literally just stab in it. What you're going to do is pull this down, and it locks the thread on to where your needle's not going to come off and your thread's not going to pull out. I'm going to do the other side the same way. All right, so what we're going to start out with here is going to go in our last two holes from the outside in, just like so. We're going to pull our thread up. This is going to give us a nice base for our stitching. And what we're going to do is what's called a baseball stitch. So the way we do that, you're going to come over and down into your next hole just like you did your first one. And we're going to cross over and do the same with this one. And trying to keep the thread as even as possible. We're going to start drawing these together. Pull it up nice and snug. We're going to do the same thing again. Here's our last hole on the end. Put it in nice and snug here. And what you can do is actually come back over a second time on these last two holes on each side like so. That'll help when you pull it down, it'll help kind of lock it in place while you tie it off. You're just going to do a simple square knot, just like so. I always like to put at least 3, possibly 4 in there. Alright, then all we got to do now is just nip off our ends and hit it with the lighter, and it's good to go. I'll show you here up close what we got going on. So there's the end result. It's basically a baseball stitch. Like I said, if you wanted to pull it in tighter, you could. If you don't have any embossing on the leather like we have here, you can wet the leather a little bit and it'll stretch, but I like to leave a little bit of gap. That way when actually, since this is going to be on the bottom, got a little bit of a grip on there. Alright, so all I got to do now is just snip these ends off and hit it with the lighter and it's done. Then all we got to do is just exact same thing on the other side. Alright, so here's the throttle side done. See, we've got the lace on the bottom here, 6 o'clock position, all nice and tidy. And so you can use thinner leather if you like. I kind of like the idea of a thick grip. You know, you got larger hands, a little bit more comfortable. Stock grips are just entirely too thin in my particular likings. There it is, completed. Both sides looking good. I may come back with a little fine brush and my die and fill in these other holes I've put in. But then again, it may weather out pretty nice. So there you go. Let me know what you think.